everyone, I'm Emma, this is Emma Rosen Books. I wanted to talk a little bit about editing because I suppose I'm halfway through the editing process and it just seemed like the right time. Okay, so I'm going to start off. There are loads of videos about editing and different kinds of editor and all that kind of things, but in a nutshell, my understanding is really that there are three main types of editor. There are developmental editors, so if your story really needs some work, you know, with how to put the story together with more kind of like writing skills, I guess, then you can go to a developmental editor who will help you actually put the story together. Oh, also, it was my daughter's first birthday, so yeah. So, yeah, developmental editors who will look at the actual story. Then you might want a copy editor. So a copy editor will look at, yes, they'll look at spelling and grammar and so forth, but they are looking more for like word usage, sentence structure, readability, you know, actually how does your book read as a book? Could you have phrased something better? Have you overused a certain word? Or it turns out I used the word just over and over and over again, and I just didn't realise. Then there are proofreaders. So a proofreader is really just looking for spelling, grammar, you know, has a word been missed out, has a page been missed out, have you repeated a sentence, that kind of thing, like a page is numbered correctly, all of that stuff. I came to the conclusion that in order to put out a professional product, I needed a copy editor and a proofreader. I didn't feel like I needed a developmental editor. I appreciate that some people feel that they have the editing skills to not do that, and I think it's up to everybody, but I think being a writer is different to being an editor. They are different skills, and I'm sure there's overlap, and some writers do editing work and some editors do writing work and so on. But if you're approaching a book as an editor, you're going to do that in a very different way than you are as a writer. And just the fact that, yeah, if you're a writer, you're going to have fairly good spelling and grammar and you're going to know about how to put a story together and so on, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're an editor. And certainly for me, I'm quite well known for the fact that I'm a bit slapdash. If you get a text from me, it's always going to be spelt wrong because I don't ever proofread texts, emails, any of that stuff. Like, I am just that person that's always going to have something spelt wrong, or I've forgotten something, or the date's wrong, or whatever. And although of course I've edited this book over and over again and I've done my very best, I'm not the kind of person that's got that attention to detail that an editor needs to have and that kind of methodical look at things. So for me, I needed professional editing work. And so I decided I needed copy editing before the design process and then proofreading after the design process, just to make sure that there weren't any remaining issues and that, you know, in the design process nothing had gone wrong, like there wasn't anything numbered incorrectly or anything like that. So as I say, I think that's, you know, that's a case for people's opinion. Some people may want to proofread it themselves, some people may feel they don't need a copy editor, some people feel like they need a developmental editor as well. Just for me, that's what I thought. You know, if I'm gonna make the best product I can, if I want to be proud of this book, I want this to be the best it can be, and so to me that's the level of professional editing that I needed. So I did a bit of research on how to find somebody and I wasn't really sure, and then I found SFEP, which is the Society for Editors and Proofreaders, and I'll put the link below. Now, as far as I was concerned, if you're working in an industry and you are signed up to a professional body within that industry, then that gives you a certain level of credibility. So to me, using people who were signed up, who were a member of the Society for Proofreaders, Editors and Proofreaders, that kind of gave them, to me, a level of trustworthiness. So I felt that was a good starting point. On the SFEP website, there's a facility where you can search for people who specialise in certain things. So for me, I was searching for breastfeeding and I was searching for parenting, and I was looking particularly for people who worked within non-fiction, memoir. You know, when I was reading what they do, I wanted people who covered that whole sphere of what my book, which is called Milk, by the way, and it's about breastfeeding, what that book is, which is a mixture of all of those things. And I ended up with 4 people returned from that. And so I then drafted an email where I explained what my book was about and that I was looking for a copy editor and a proofreader, and sent that off. And if I remember rightly, I didn't hear from somebody. I think somebody said that they didn't want to do it or couldn't do it or whatever. Because of course somebody might look at what your book is about or and decide that they don't want to work on that project, and of course that's fine. And then I had a couple of people who said that they were interested, and they asked for sample edits. So I chose some chapters that weren't linked to each other, that weren't consecutive, that were from the middle of the book, which was likely to have the worst level of editing, and sent that to them so that they could see, sorry, not sample edits, sample chapters, so that they could see what they were working with. That then meant that they could give me a realistic quote based on the level of work they were going to have to put into this book. I, at the same time, had a look into kind of how long I thought that the book would take to edit, which I thought would be about 3 weeks or so. And I also had a look on SVEP. Again, they've got a page where they list the recommended prices for people to charge. So I had a ballpark figure in my head of what I thought I should be paying for copy editing and for proofreading. And then those editors that I'd contacted came back to me with quotes and information about what they could do and when they could do it and so forth. And it was a really difficult decision because really I'm talking to really great professionals. So what I did was I took a holistic view where I looked at their websites, their social media, the quote that they'd given me, the interactions with them, everything all together, and it was really hard actually because there were pros and cons for everybody I'd spoken to, but ultimately I went with my gut because I've decided that my instinct seems to be good. If something feels right, then I'm just going for it. So I worked with a particular editor. I haven't asked that editor whether I can mention their name in this video, so I'm not gonna, but obviously their name will be listed in my book. And I then arranged, a date when I would send everything over and when they'd complete the work by and all of that. So that person did the copy editing for my book. Now, it is considered best practice to go to a different person to proofread your book because then you get somebody else's viewpoint. And that was my intention, and I would recommend that. However, my book is very niche, and I did contact some people and just wasn't really happy, and some people I didn't hear back from. And I decided to go with the same editor because she'd been absolutely brilliant. I'd really enjoyed the experience. I'd learned loads. I was really happy with the work that she'd done, the improvements she'd made on the book, the things she'd picked up that I just hadn't seen, just been totally blind to. It was brilliant. So based on that, I decided to use her as a proofreader as well, and she's assured me that she's going to do the proofreading stage from hard copies, so that is different from working on a computer. And I know, because I have a friend who's an editor, that the way you approach copy editing is different to the way you approach proofreading. And so I'm trusting her to be a professional and to, look at my work in a different way. And I'm really happy with that decision. Again, when I looked at the big picture, although there was a part of me that wanted to work with somebody else, overall it just seemed the right thing to do to work with the same editor again. As I say, that would be a judgment call for any of you, and I'm sure that lots of you would choose to work with somebody else, but I'm sure that some of you would choose to stay with the same person. And I guess it's just up to you and your editor and the correspondence you've had, and things like pricing and timing and all of that. At the moment, the stage I'm in is I've had the copy editing done, my book is away having the design process done, and then obviously when that comes back it's going to go in for the proofreading stage. As I say, I'm just really happy with what came up in copy editing. There were bits where I'd overused words, there were bits where the words I used weren't perhaps the best ones. I used way too many cliches, I didn't realise I did it. And one instance of something that I hadn't picked up was I'd moved a paragraph, or maybe 2-3 paragraphs, from one section to another section. And I had talked about the scientist Carl Linnaeus, because he's the person who defined mammals, and mammals are animals that breastfeed, so that's why I'm talking about him. And actually he was a bit of a political, like, social activist. And I describe him as the aforementioned Carl Linnaeus. And my editor said, you haven't mentioned him before. And it was like, oh my God, I just couldn't believe that I'd done that. And I had read the book and edited through the book since then. So it was one of those things where I just looked at it and went, oh my God, I can't believe that. So I am really glad that I paid somebody, otherwise I would have looked really stupid, because I probably wouldn't have picked that up. Yeah, definitely, for me, it was definitely worth the money. I'm really pleased with where my manuscript's at now. I feel confident that not an awful lot is going to come back from the proofreading stage. So yeah, it's all good. I'm sure that if you live in America or Australia or Canada, or, well, any country, I'm sure, that there will be some kind of professional body where you can do it in the same way. You know, you can approach a professional body, they might have a website or whatever, and you can get recommendations on editors who are going to be signed up with them, so therefore, you know, they've got some kind of credentials. So that would be my advice, I guess, if you're looking for somebody. Anyway, but leave me comments below if you've got anything to add to that, and please like if you did, please subscribe for more writerly and bookish videos, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!